Hello students. These days I've taken up this book for discussion, Texts and the Worlds, and in the series of my lectures on Indo-Anglian writers, particularly Indo-Anglian poets, today I'm going to talk about Don't Call Me Indo-Anglian, a famous poem by Syed Amanuddin. Indian English Literature, IEL, also referred to as Indian Writing in English, IWE, is a body of work by writers in India who write in the English language and whose native or co-native language could be any one of the numerous languages in India, like Kannada, like Malayalam, like Bangla, any language. It is also associated with the works of members of the Indian diaspora, such as V.S. Naipaul, Kiran Desai, Jhampa Lahiri, who are of Indian descent. It is frequently referred to as the Indo-Anglian literature. The term Indo-Anglian is used to denote original literary creation in the English language by Indians. Today, there are a large number of educated Indians who use the English language as a medium of creative exploration and expression of their thoughts, their experiences of life. Their writing has now developed into substantial literature in its own right, and it is a substantial body of literature which is now referred to as Indo-Anglian literature. A different name than English literature, Anglo-Indian literature, was given earlier to the body of literature in English that engaged on account of the British interactions with India. Even the Indians' contribution, like translations as well as creative pieces in English, were classed under the caption Anglo-Indian literature earlier, initially, but later a different name, Indo-Anglian, was conceived for the growing variety and volume of writings in English by Indians writing in English. With the passage of time, the fine line of demarcation drawn on the basis of subject matter and author's point of view has disappeared, and currently even Anglo-Indians' writings are classed as Indo-Anglian writing. Syed Amanuddin is a poet with a blend of Indian essence and American flavor in his writings. Amanuddin was born and brought up in India and later migrated to America. This is the reason that his poetry unifies the Indian clarity and American modernity. As a poet, he is closer to Americans rather than to any English or Indo-Anglian poet, because he lived there, because he read American literature, so he is more closer to American literary tradition. This poem, which I am going to discuss, presents the lack of belongingness, an identity crisis of a poet who thinks he is Indian but is not accepted there as he has migrated to another country, and on the other hand, that country does not accept him as he is a migrant. He belongs to a different race. He seeks his belongingness, and the search becomes a frustration. This poem becomes an outlet of the aggression he holds against the non-acceptability. He writes about human experiences, and each of his work has a deep emotional flavor in it, fervor. Syed Amanuddin is a poet with a blend of Indian essence and American flavor in his writing. His works capture the essence of human experience like joy, happiness, love, pain, suffering, and death. Amanuddin denounces being addressed as an Indo-Anglian. He is categorized as Indo-Anglian poet in America or elsewhere also. In a staccato speech pattern, he denigrates the word Indo-Anglian as a hodgepodge of culture, which suggests lack of belongingness to either of the cultures. He has enlisted the following reasons for the abomination: a hodgepodge of culture, a confusion of language, a nullity of imagination, an abortive affair between an Indo and an Anglo. He says he hates hyphens. He says artificial, these are artificial bridges, hyphens, bridge two words between artificial values. He says, in the name of race, religion and language, I damn all hyphenated minds. Prejudiced offsprings of unlinked souls. Let us examine the validity of reasons enumerated by him. It seems he feels himself illegitimate when somebody assigns him as Indo-Anglian, and it aborts his identity as an individual. The complete absence of punctuation in the entire poem shows strongly the urgency to express his aggression, his frustration, or of the repression of anger that he has been undergoing, it appears, for a long time. Syed Amanuddin, in his poem Don't Call Me Indo-Anglian, vehemently rejects his identity as an Indo-Anglian writer. He hated hyphens that play as bridges between artificial values in the name of race, in the name of religion, in the name of language. He denounced all pseudo labels and label makers also. Syed Amanuddin is a prominent poet with a broad vision. He appears to be a universalist, a citizen of the whole world, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, and never wishes to be categorized by the call of his own religion, by the call of his caste, on the basis of creed. He says, people ask me what my religion is, and I tell them that I was born in a Muslim family, was brought up in a Hindu environment, and was sent to Catholic schools, missionary schools. And he says, I've always been a great admirer of Buddhism. But people love labels and would not take that for an answer. If I say that I belong to the world, nobody will take that as an answer. Nobody will accept that. He says that they called him Indo-Anglian, which he did not understand what it exactly meant. Though he migrated to America, he nostalgically recalled his hometown Mysore and its important landmarks like Kaveri River, Chamundi Hills, the deity Chamundi, the haunting music of Vrindavan fountains, all these things. But he did not want to confine himself to his childhood scenes. He had flown across the universe on the wings of his thoughts in search of truths by knowing languages and their creeds and kindled the candles of wisdom in the dark chaos of prejudice, in the dark chaos of ignorance. Even then, they called him Indo-Anglian. The mistaken, misinformed folks classify him with a small group of writers, which made him cloistered, ghettoized, crippled. Though he was able to roam with Kalidas and Kabir, he could go on a spiritual journey with Dante and meditate with Khayyam on the mysteries of existence. He could sing the songs with anguish of love, with Ghalib. Here he rises above the considerations of caste, above the considerations of creed and sect, and proclaims to be a humanitarian, a citizen of the world, a compassionate universalist. But in the heart of his heart, to be an Indian first and last. His poem, Don't Call Me an Indo-Anglian, is the best example which unfolds the liberty to use the stylistic structures. His urged usage of negative words like hodgepodge, confused, nullity, abortive, unveil his disgust as he was put in the category of Indo-Anglian man of letters. In fact, he was not Anglo, as he could not write in English in the manner and language and style of Shakespeare, in the style of Milton. So he cannot be called, he says, I am not an Anglo. But his name was categorized as Indo-Anglian, which was just confined to the man of letters. He did not digest this type of segregation. He is against this kind of identity politics. The poem begins with utter dissatisfaction, with utter disappointment. The most remarkable thing in this poem that makes the poet's style is his audacity to challenge the linguistic norms. If he does not belong to them, then their rules do not belong to him. Amanuddin, presented in his poem, Don't Call Me Indo-Anglian, a clear picture of what he feels about his hybridized identity. The sense of loss of belongingness haunts his identity, which finds no satisfaction, but ends in victorious chant when Amanuddin finds his identity as a poet. His diasporic identity vanishes with this declaration, which makes him universal and everywhere when he says, I am a poet. I have lived my 40 centuries under various names. I am now Amanuddin. So he identifies himself with the poets of all ages. Thus Amanuddin revolted against the conservative ideas of the literary world.